The Crystal Mirage Hotel stood like a monument to wealth and grandeur, its glass doors gliding open as if bowing to the guests who passed through. The air inside was cool, perfumed faintly with roses and sandalwood, and the marble floors gleamed under the golden light of the chandeliers. Guests in tailored suits and elegant gowns drifted across the lobby, voices soft, laughter subdued, every sound seeming to blend with the gentle hum of the fountain in the center. It was a palace of modern luxury, a place where appearances mattered more than anything else. That morning, however, the rhythm of the hotel faltered. Heads turned when the tall Arab man walked in. His stride was purposeful, his long white thobe crisp, uncreased, flowing with quiet dignity. A keffiyeh of spotless white and gold draped neatly over his head, secured with a black agal. His shoes, black and polished to a mirror shine, clicked against the marble, announcing his presence even before his deep voice rolled across the lobby. He greeted warmly, though his expression was reserved. His voice was deep, confident, and carried the weight of authority. Behind him, 2 assistants followed, each pulling sleek black suitcases with gold initials embossed at the corners. Their eyes darted around the lobby, measuring every detail, as if they were not merely arriving guests but inspectors. The receptionist looked up, startled. A young man, barely in his 20s, his tie slightly crooked, froze. He blinked rapidly at the Arabic words as though they were incomprehensible noises. The billionaire spoke again, his tone polite, his cadence deliberate, as he explained his reservation, his words flowing smoothly in his native tongue. The receptionist's lips parted, but no answer came. The silence stretched uncomfortably. A guest waiting nearby raised a brow, amused. Another woman whispered, "He doesn't speak English?" The murmur carried, and soon several heads tilted toward the counter, watching the scene with mild curiosity. The receptionist stammered at last, Sir, English? Do you speak English?" His voice cracked, more nervous than professional. The Arab man's dark eyes narrowed slightly, and he answered slowly, his accent thick but his words unmistakable. "Reservation. Under Khalid al-Rashid." The name fell like a stone into still water, though no one recognized it. To the staff, he was another demanding guest. But to the world beyond these marble walls, Khalid al-Rashid's name carried weight in boardrooms and news headlines, a billionaire whose investments stretched from oil to technology, a man whose decisions altered economies. The receptionist tapped the keyboard nervously, pretending to search the system. His lips curled faintly in irritation. The manager, drawn by the tension, strode over briskly. A man in his 40s, with slicked hair and a suit that strained slightly at the waist, he exuded forced authority. "What seems to be the problem?" he asked, though his tone was already laced with impatience. The receptionist whispered quickly, He's speaking Arabic, sir. I can't understand him." The manager's jaw tightened. He turned to Khalid, plastering on a smile that barely reached his eyes. "Sir, English, please. We cannot assist otherwise." "English?" His voice rose slightly, carrying across the lobby. A few guests chuckled under their breath, mistaking the situation for entertainment. Khalid's lips pressed into a thin line. He repeated himself, more firmly, switching back and forth between Arabic and halting English, trying to make himself understood. He gestured to the suitcases, to his assistants, to the desk itself. The meaning was obvious. He had a reservation, and he expected it honored. But the manager sighed dramatically, throwing up his hands. "This is exactly the problem," he muttered, not low enough to escape notice. "They come to our country, our hotels, and don't even try to speak properly." The words, sharp and dripping with disdain, struck Khalid harder than he let on. His face remained composed, but a flicker of fire lit his gaze. He spoke again in Arabic, faster now, the warmth gone, replaced by clipped syllables that carried irritation. His assistants exchanged uneasy glances, clearly understanding the insult and his rising anger. A murmur rippled through the lobby. Guests watched openly now, their curiosity feeding on the spectacle. Some smirked, others frowned. A woman whispered, "Maybe he's not supposed to be here." A man chuckled. "Looks like money can't buy English." The atmosphere thickened, every second without resolution another blow to dignity. Khalid's hand curled into a fist at his side. His patience, long renowned in boardroom negotiations, thinned rapidly in this gilded cage where luxury covered rudeness like perfume overwrought. His assistants shifted uncomfortably, whispering in Arabic to calm him. And then, from the far side of the lobby, movement. A maid in a simple black uniform stood frozen, a stack of fresh towels balanced in her arms. She had been passing unnoticed, another shadow in the grand halls, but the sound of his words had stopped her. Her dark skin glowed under the golden lights, her hair pulled back neatly beneath her cap. Her eyes, sharp, alert, widened as she listened. She understood every word. For a moment she hesitated, torn between fear of overstepping and the pull of conscience. Staff at her level were invisible by design, meant to clean, to serve, but never to interrupt. Yet the tension, the insult, the injustice hung heavy in the air. She set the towels gently on her cart and straightened, her heart pounding in her chest. Khalid's voice, heavy with restrained anger, filled the space again. His gaze swept the lobby, sharp and searching, daring anyone to treat him as less than what he was. His eyes landed on her, standing apart, her posture different from the others. Their eyes locked, and in that single instant he knew. She had understood. The billionaire's voice dropped, softer but urgent, as he repeated a phrase in Arabic. "Do you understand me?" Her lips parted, but no sound came. The entire lobby seemed to hold its breath. The manager glared at her, as if daring her to step forward, to break the unspoken rule that kept her silent. Amara, the name on her tag glinted faintly in the light, took a deep breath, steadying herself. Her palms were damp, her legs heavy, but she moved forward one step, then another. The billionaire's eyes followed her, sharp, measuring. His assistants straightened, hope flickering in their expressions. The staff and guests turned to watch the impossible unfold, the maid stepping toward the man everyone else failed to understand. The distance between them shrank. Her heart thundered in her ears, but her voice, when it came, was clear, strong, and carried the weight of every moment she had held her tongue in silence. The lobby fell into silence so profound it felt as though time itself waited for her words. The silence in the lobby felt heavy, almost oppressive, as Amara stood between the billionaire and the hotel staff. Her voice, calm yet resonant, broke through the tension. In flawless Arabic, she spoke to the man, welcoming him, acknowledging his reservation, and assuring him that his suite was ready. Every syllable carried clarity, respect, and warmth. Khalid's stern expression softened instantly. Relief passed across his face, followed by gratitude that shimmered in his dark eyes. He whispered, his words carrying more weight than a sigh of relief. His assistants exchanged glances, their shoulders relaxing for the first time since they had stepped foot into the hotel. Finally, someone had bridged the chasm of misunderstanding. Gasps rippled among the crowd of onlookers. The lobby manager's jaw dropped, his skin flushing a deep red. He stuttered, unable to mask his shock. You speak that language?" The way he said that made the words sound like a disease, like something ugly that should be hidden away. Guests standing nearby raised their eyebrows at his tone, sensing the disdain dripping from it. Amara ignored him. She kept her eyes on Khalid, repeating his words in English for the staff at the front desk. "This is Mr. Khalid al-Rashid. He has a reservation for the penthouse suite. Please confirm it in your system." The receptionist fumbled with the keyboard, his face pale, sweat forming at his temples. The cursor blinked on the screen as he scrambled to recover from the humiliation of failing the simplest duty of his job. Meanwhile, the billionaire straightened his back, dignity restored, his gaze never leaving Amara. The lobby manager hissed, his voice lowered but sharp enough for Amara to hear. "Be careful, girl. This is not your place. Do your cleaning, stay in your role. Don't overstep." His eyes were narrow slits, filled with resentment at being exposed in front of the staff and guests. Khalid caught the words, if not in English then in the venomous tone that needed no translation. His face darkened. He turned his head, addressing Amara again in Arabic, his voice low but laced with steel. "Tell me, do they always treat guests like this when no one is watching?" Her breath caught. The weight of his question pressed down on her chest. She knew the truth, had lived it, had seen countless guests dismissed, disrespected, and mishandled when staff thought nobody important was watching. Yet speaking the truth would mean burning bridges with her employers, risking her position in front of everyone. Her hands trembled at her sides, but her voice, when it came, was steady. "Yes," she said in Arabic, her tone measured but unflinching. "Too often. They bow to those they recognize, but when someone is different, when language is a barrier, they mock, they dismiss." The words rang out like a hammer against stone. Gasps followed, sharp intakes of breath from staff and guests alike. The assistants behind Khalid nodded, their expressions grave. They had seen exactly what she described unfold moments ago. The truth was undeniable. The manager broke into a nervous laugh, trying to mask his fear. "She's exaggerating. Sir, she's just a maid. What does she know of hospitality at this level?" His words echoed, hollow and defensive. Amara turned her head, her eyes meeting his with quiet defiance. "Respect doesn't require a title. Only humility." Guests murmured, some nodding in agreement, others whispering with astonishment at her boldness. A tourist couple near the fountain exchanged approving smiles. A businessman, seated with a laptop in the corner, muttered audibly, "She's right." The manager's composure began to crumble. Sweat dotted his forehead, and his forced smile twitched at the edges. He tried to redirect attention back to the billionaire, his voice strained. "Mr. Al-Rashid, please, let's get this sorted." But Khalid silenced him with a look. His eyes were piercing, his presence overwhelming, the kind of authority born not from volume but from power itself. He lifted his hand and gestured toward Amara. You will guide me to my suite. From now on, you are my liaison here." The words landed with the weight of a decree. Amara froze, blinking, unsure if she had heard him correctly. Around her, staff gasped audibly, the shock rippling like a wave. A maid elevated above polished receptionists and managers. Unthinkable. The manager sputtered, his face pale now, his composure unraveling completely. "But, sir, she's not trained for this, she's not qualified." "She is honest," Khalid cut in sharply, his English accented but strong, his tone brooking no argument. "And honesty is more valuable than all your training." The manager's mouth snapped shut. His throat bobbed as he swallowed hard, his fear visible now, though he tried to hide it behind clenched teeth. The assistants nodded in approval, falling into step behind their employer as he moved toward the elevators. Amara, heart racing, followed at his side, unsure whether to feel fear, pride, or both. She felt the eyes of every guest and staff member boring into her back, whispers following her with each step. Did he just? He chose the maid? Unbelievable! The murmur of the crowd swirled behind them as the polished elevator doors gleamed in front of them. The manager tried one last time, desperation leaking into his voice. "Mr. Al-Rashid, I assure you, this was all a misunderstanding. We value you, we value." Khalid's head turned, his expression sharp as a blade. "Respect is not a performance," he said in English, each word clipped, deliberate. "It is a principle." The manager froze, his face strained of all color. The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime. Khalid stepped inside with Amara at his side, his assistants close behind. The mirrored walls reflected their figures, a picture of contrast. The billionaire draped in pristine white and gold, and the maid in her plain black uniform, standing unexpectedly as his equal in that moment. As the doors began to close, the guests leaned forward in anticipation, desperate to see how this story would unfold. And then, with a final glance back at the lobby where whispers and shame still lingered, Khalid's deep voice broke the silence once more. "Respect cannot be bought. It must be given." The doors sealed shut, leaving the lobby stunned, the manager trembling, and Amara caught in a moment she knew would change her life forever. The elevator ride felt unreal to Amara. She stood slightly behind the towering figure of Khalid Al-Rashid, her reflection staring back at her from the polished metal walls. Her black uniform, so plain and unassuming, looked like it did not belong next to his flowing white thobe, his gold-trimmed keffiyeh, and the glitter of his diamond watch. Her heart pounded so loudly she was certain he could hear it. She clutched her hands together to stop them from trembling, yet there was a calmness in him, a quiet assurance that seemed to settle over her as the floor numbers ticked upward. When the doors opened to the penthouse level, it was as if they had stepped into another world. The suite sprawled like a palace in the sky, with high ceilings, crystal light fixtures, and windows that stretched from floor to ceiling, revealing the glittering sprawl of the city below. Golden accents glowed in the light, and Persian rugs softened the marble floors. It was wealth made tangible, wealth Amara had only ever glimpsed in glossy magazines she sometimes found discarded in guest rooms. Khalid moved to the window, clasping his hands behind his back as he stared out at the view. His assistants busied themselves in silence, unpacking, making calls, their voices low, efficient, professional. The room filled with the muted sound of Arabic, the language Amara knew so well but never revealed in her years working at the hotel. He turned slowly, his gaze finding her again. "You spoke truth down there," he said in Arabic, his voice calm but heavy. "Few people dare to speak truth when it costs them something." Her throat tightened. She lowered her eyes, unsure how to respond, but she forced herself to meet his stare again. "It was not bravery, sir. It was necessity. Too many times I've watched guests humiliated, dismissed, because staff assumed they were less. I could not stay silent when I understood you and they refused to try." His eyes softened, though his posture remained regal. "And yet silence would have been safer for you." Amara hesitated. "Respect is worth more than safety," she said finally. One of his assistants chuckled softly under his breath, impressed by her words. Khalid gave a slight nod, as though affirming something within himself. He motioned for her to sit, but she remained standing, her training urging her not to overstep further. He studied her closely, then asked, "Tell me, how long have you worked here?" 3 years, sir." "And in 3 years have you ever seen them treat a guest with dignity when no one was watching?" Her chest rose and fell with the weight of the question. She shook her head slowly. "Only when there was profit, sir. Only when they believed someone was powerful enough to matter." Khalid let out a breath through his nose, turning back to the window. The city lights reflected in his eyes, sharp and thoughtful. "Then they are not worthy of the position they hold," he murmured. The manager's voice echoed in her mind, "You're just a maid, don't overstep ." But his contempt only sharpened her resolve. She found herself speaking again, her words spilling before she could stop them. "Hospitality without respect is only performance. A hotel can be covered in gold, but if there is no sincerity, it is nothing more than an expensive shell." Silence followed, broken only by the faint hum of the city far below. Then, slowly, a smile tugged at the corners of Khalid's mouth. It was not one of amusement, but of recognition. "Honesty," he said quietly, "is rare. And honesty from those with nothing to gain is priceless." Amara felt her face warm. She bowed her head, unsure how to hold herself in this moment. She was only a maid, yet here she was, speaking truths to a billionaire who could buy the entire hotel without a second thought. The manager's voice, frantic and desperate, suddenly broke the air as the penthouse doors opened. He had rushed up, his suit slightly disheveled, his forehead damp with sweat. He plastered on a smile, though it looked more like a grimace. "Mr. Al-Rashid," he began quickly, "I must apologize again for the misunderstanding downstairs. Please let us handle everything properly now. I assure you this establishment values—" "Silence," Khalid said, his voice sharp and commanding. The words sliced through the room, leaving the manager frozen in place, his mouth open but empty. Khalid's gaze was cold, his tone unwavering. "Respect is not an act you perform only for those you recognize. Respect is for every guest, every human being who enters this place. If you cannot understand that, then you do not belong here." The manager swallowed hard, his face turning ashen. He looked at Amara, his eyes burning with resentment, as though blaming her for everything unraveling. She felt the weight of his glare, but Khaled's presence shielded her like a wall. Turning back to her, Khaled said, "From this moment you are my liaison. Every word, every request, every concern will pass through you." Amara's knees nearly buckled. "Sir, I am not trained for such responsibility." "You are trained in honesty," Khaled countered. "And that is all I require." The assistants murmured their approval in Arabic, nodding at one another. The manager's jaw worked silently, but he dared not argue further. He backed away, his dignity shredded, his authority stripped in front of the very staff he once commanded. Amara felt the shift deep in her bones. For years she had been invisible, her voice unneeded, her presence unnoticed unless a towel was late or a corner missed. Yet here she stood, chosen by a man whose wealth and influence dwarfed everyone in the hotel. Still, doubt gnawed at her. "Why me, sir? Why trust a maid when you could hire someone polished, someone with degrees and titles?" Khaled's eyes locked with hers, steady and piercing. "Because degrees and titles did not help them understand me. You did. Titles are empty without heart. You saw me when they did not." Her chest tightened with something she had not felt in years: pride. Not the shallow pride of arrogance, but the deep pride of being seen for who she truly was. The manager lingered near the door, trembling with the weight of what had just unfolded. He opened his mouth again, desperate to salvage control. "Mr. Al-Rashid, please reconsider." But Khaled's glare silenced him before the words could form. He turned away dismissively, his voice calm yet final. "You will answer for this failure." The manager paled further, retreating into a hallway with the weight of humiliation dragging at his steps. The assistants exchanged knowing glances, whispering among themselves. They had traveled the world, they had seen arrogance and dismissal in countless places, but rarely had they witnessed someone as unassuming as a maid stand her ground with such dignity. Khaled's gaze lingered on Amara one last time that night, his tone soft but certain. "The world often looks down on those who clean floors and change sheets. But remember this, without people like you, no palace, no hotel, no empire can stand. Do not forget your worth." Her eyes stung, though she held the tears back. She nodded, her voice steady though her heart trembled. "I will not forget, sir." As the night settled over the city, the billionaire prepared his decision in silence, a decision that would shake the foundations of the Crystal Mirage Hotel. The maid who had dared to speak had unknowingly set into motion a change that would leave no one untouched. The morning sun spilled through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Crystal Mirage Hotel, bathing the marble floors in a pale golden glow. Guests moved through the lobby in hushed clusters, sipping coffee, scrolling through devices, or speaking in quiet tones. Yet beneath the calm surface, whispers rippled, stories of what had unfolded the night before. The tale of the billionaire who had been humiliated, and the maid who spoke for him, had spread like wildfire through staff corridors and guest conversations. Everyone waited for the outcome. Khaled Al-Rashid stepped into the lobby with deliberate calm. His thobe gleamed white in the light, every crease perfect, his bearing regal yet restrained. On either side, his assistants walked like shadows, their eyes sharp and observant. But it was the figure just behind him that drew the most startled stares: Amara, no longer pushing a cart of towels, no longer invisible in her black uniform. She walked with her chin lifted, her pace measured, her presence commanding notice even though her uniform remained the same. She was not the maid this morning. She was something far more. The hotel staff had been summoned, lined along the edges of the grand lobby. The manager stood stiffly at the center, his face pale, his suit rumpled from a sleepless night. He forced a smile, though his hands betrayed him with their constant twitching. Guests lingered nearby, curiosity drawing them into the spectacle. Even those with no knowledge of the previous night could sense that something momentous was about to happen. Khaled stopped at the center of the marble floor. His gaze swept across the staff, then lingered on the manager, whose forced smile faltered under the weight of that silent scrutiny. Without raising his voice, Khaled commanded attention. "I came to this hotel expecting hospitality," he said in English, his accent measured, his words crisp. What I found was arrogance, impatience, and disdain. Not from all, but from those who should know better. The staff shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting to the manager. A hush fell so deep that even the fountain's steady trickle seemed loud. Khalid turned, his hand gesturing toward Amara. And yet, in the one person you trained to be invisible, I found respect. In the one you overlooked, I found honesty. In the one you dismissed, I found dignity. Gasps fluttered through the lobby. The manager's face twisted, his desperation breaking through his facade. Sir, please, she is only a maid. She cannot represent the standards of an establishment such as this. Silence. Khalid's voice cracked like a whip. The single word silenced the entire lobby. His eyes hardened, fixed on the man who had humiliated him in front of guests and staff alike. Titles mean nothing without humanity. Wealth can buy chandeliers, marble, and gold, but it cannot buy respect. She has what this hotel lacks. The manager trembled. Sir, You will no longer hold your position here. The finality in Khalid's tone left no room for argument. His assistants exchanged approving nods, their eyes glinting with satisfaction. The staff gasped. Some hid their relief poorly, others looked shocked, and a few whispered nervously. The manager's lips moved soundlessly, his eyes wide with disbelief. Then, realizing the futility of protest, he bowed his head and stepped back, defeated, the weight of disgrace pressing heavily on his shoulders. Khalid shifted his gaze to Amara. As of this moment, he announced, Amara is the new guest relations director. She understands better than anyone what true hospitality means. Her heart stopped. For a moment she thought she had misheard, that her mind had conjured the words out of wishful thinking. But the applause that erupted from several guests shattered her disbelief. A businessman clapped firmly, a tourist couple joined in, and soon others followed, their approval echoing through the grand space. Amara's throat tightened. Her eyes darted to Khalid, searching for any sign that this was a test, a fleeting gesture, but his gaze was steady, his nod certain. Sir, I don't know if I... Her voice faltered. She had been cleaning bathrooms only yesterday. The leap felt impossible. You spoke when no one else would, Khalid replied in Arabic, so only she fully understood. His tone softened, though it carried the same weight. That is leadership. That is courage. Do not doubt yourself. Her chest swelled, tears stinging her eyes though she refused to let them fall. She stood taller, meeting the gazes that once ignored her, now forced to see her in a new light. Khalid turned to the gathered crowd once more. This hotel will change, he declared. I will see to it personally. Staff will be retrained. Policies will be rebuilt. And if respect cannot be learned... His pause was deliberate, his eyes scanning the staff. Then you will leave. The staff shifted again, nervous energy rippling like a current. The message was clear. There would be no more masks, no more empty performances. The guests murmured approvingly, some openly smiling at Amara. One older woman leaned toward her companion and whispered loudly enough to be heard. That maid saved this hotel's reputation. Another replied. No, she saved its soul. The manager, shoulders hunched, slipped quietly toward the side doors, his dignity abandoned among the whispers of his peers. Amara stood in the center of it all, her plain black uniform now transformed by the weight of new meaning. She was no longer invisible, no longer background. Every eye in the room was on her, and for once, she did not shrink from it. Khalid moved closer to her, lowering his voice so only she could hear. Remember this, Amara, the world often underestimates those it deems small. But greatness is not measured by uniforms or wealth. It is measured by the courage to act with dignity when it matters most. Her lips trembled as she whispered back. Thank you, sir. I will not forget. He gave a slight nod, then turned once more to the assembled crowd. His final words rang with quiet power, words that would linger long after he left the lobby. Wealth can build walls and light chandeliers, but only respect makes a place worthy of honor. Remember that. The applause that followed filled the grand lobby, echoing against marble and glass, until it felt as if the very building itself acknowledged the truth. And as Amara walked forward at the side of the billionaire, her head high and her steps steady, she knew her life had changed forever. The maid who once cleaned unnoticed corners of the hotel now carried the weight of its future on her shoulders. Respect, finally, had a voice.